There is a saying that I absolutely love. It's called never judge a book by its cover. And I love this because it goes hand in hand with another saying that I also love as well. I don't look like what I've been through. People look at me and they see this well-mannered, well-polished, articulate, astute young man who is deeply rooted in God and serious about his relationship with God and what God has for him and what he's doing and concerned about ministry and for God's people. But what they don't realize is the process that it's taken to get me to this point. Growing up in a single parent home, just a mom, no male influence, sisters and grandmother, trying to find your identity growing up and really not knowing what steps to take to get there. Doing a lot of trial and error, not knowing what to do or how to do, but kind of really relying on God to really give you instructions, even as a child, on what to do, how to act, how to deal with people. I just didn't have a lot of that growing up. So a lot of it I had to learn, like I said, through trial and error. I've been saved now since the age of 6. I accepted my call to ministry when I was 9 years old. I remember distinctively that night we had just came back from Bible study, and we were actually talking about the story of Samuel and when he heard God's voice and he went to Eli and he was asking Eli why this voice was calling his name and how should he handle it. I remember asking my mom, how would I know that God's calling me? How do I know that God's speaking to me if he talks to me? I remember her telling me that when God speaks to you, you will feel a peace that comes over you. You won't be alarmed. You won't be fearful or anything like that because his love will overtake you. On the flip side of that, when the enemy talks to you, you will feel fear. You will feel that discomfort there because of the presence of the enemy. So that night when I went to sleep, one thing about me you need to know is that my nickname is Nick. My real name is Marcus, but my nickname is Nick. Everybody in the house, everybody in my family calls me Nick. Nobody, except for my grandmother, calls me Marcus. So after we had this conversation that night, we went to sleep. All of us slept in the same room. And while I was asleep, I remember hearing this voice distinctively saying Marcus. Now, mind you, nobody in my house calls me Marcus. Everybody calls me Nick. But I could hear distinctively this voice saying Marcus. So I immediately woke up, looked up, saw nobody, laid down, and it came to my mind just that quick, the conversation that my mom and I had before we went to bed. So I coupled that with the story of Samuel, and I waited until I heard this voice say my name the third time. After I heard this voice say my name the third time, I drifted back to sleep. But when I awoke that morning, I woke up with this desire and this passion, this yearning to minister, to preach, to pastor, to pursue God like I've never pursued God before. That's when I accepted my call to preach. That's when I made my mom aware, hey, I know I've been called to preach. I know I've been called to pastor. I know God has a work for me. And from that point on, my life was absolutely never the same. I've gone through my ups and downs, true enough, because that's part of the making process that God had for me. I've been exposed. I've done things I've had no business doing. I've been in relationships that I shouldn't have been in. I've been caught up with people that I have no business associating with. And I've done things that really could have been extremely detrimental to me and my life and my future. But because of God's grace and God's mercy, it didn't hinder me and keep me from still living the type of life that God had destined for me. But He's had to constantly remind me that all of this was part of the making. It was part of the process. It was part of the molding, because I know what the finished product is going to look like. And because I know what it's going to look like and I know how it's going to function, these are the things that are going to have to be put in place to get you to this particular point. So I said all that to say this. Once again, don't judge a book by its cover. If you begin to peel back and go through the pages, then you get a real understanding of the book itself. If you begin to read the words that are on those pages, you begin to put everything in place and see how we got to the cover and the title that's on the cover in the first place. God has always had to constantly remind me, in spite of everything that I've gone through and all the ups and downs and highs and lows and all of those things, God has always made it clear. I know what I'm doing. I'm going to honor my word towards you. I've spoken things in and over your life that I will bring to pass, because I am not man that I should lie, neither the son of man that I should repent. And I know what I'm doing. And above all else, if nobody else reminds you of this, remind yourself of this, Marcus. You are a man after my own heart. And because I know that you have a heart for me and for my people, I will always make sure that you are taken care of. So this is just the beginning of greater things to come. This is just a starting point of greater things to come. And I am just humble and privileged and honored at the fact that the creator of all things would even consider someone like myself, who could have been a statistic and caught up in the statistic. And God said, no, I have greater for you than what you realize, and even what the people around you realize. God is truly an awesome God. And this is just the beginning of greater things to come. Thank you.